Who is Harold Hudson Channer?
Well,
I think I've heard of him.
yeah.
Is he coming?
Welcome very, very much to Conversation. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program a dear old friend of mine. That's Nita Renfrew. She's well known to much of the New York City population as being a person who really keeps track of things very carefully. She's here to talk about the situation in Central Park. And I'm here to explain to you, she's a friend who lives right near Central Park on 5th Avenue. And if I understand, I want to check with you, Nita. You have, when you go out of your house, there is a pigeon that waits for you.
Yeah,
waits for you and then comes on your shoulder.
That's right. There's several of them. It
Can
comes
you
on my hand.
imagine that? How would you like to come out of the house and there's a pigeon that flies to your house? You walk down the street with the pigeon.
No, in my hand.
On your hand. She's a lover of nature and so forth, and she's got some issues to take up about some thoughts about how we treat New York City. Nita, it's so good to see. It's good to see. We haven't done enough. It's so good to see you. Welcome back to MNN.
Well, thank you. Well,
you're looking great, girl. Now tell me about we're going to be talking about Central Park and the people who want to change it.
Well, it's not just Central Park. It's all New York City parks.
All of New York, right? Okay.
The Parks Department is going to pass. They've said they're going to pass a rule, which didn't go up for vote with any congressional office or the city council or anything. They just, said they were putting up this rule, and it has to be okayed by Mayor de Blasio's legal department, but he has said he supports it and he's going to pass it. He also said we're not going to enforce it, but why pass something if you're not going to enforce it?
Well, yeah, he's busy running for president now.
Exactly.
I don't think he's got much chance, but yeah.
And that comes down to what's happening.
Yeah.
Now, I'm somebody, they want to prohibit feeding all birds and squirrels in all New York City parks.
Right.
Now, the Parks Department is saying that the reason they want to prohibit it is because, one, a lot of people feed food that is not appropriate to the animals, to these animals, and we're animals too.
Yeah.
And they also say that it brings rats, but, and a bunch of other stuff. And they say people can go out and look at the birds. They don't have to feed them. Well, in some of the parks, there isn't enough food for them, especially in the winter.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you could make the case that in Central Park there are a lot of trees and so on, and a lot of plants. Although there's also a lot of lawn. There's more and more lawn in Central Park, and they're cutting down a lot of trees, and they take up all of the dead leaves.
They're cutting up trees?
They're cutting down trees? Yeah, because they're making more pathways for the tourists.
I'm trying to get at values that they're trying to expose. Okay, go ahead, yeah.
So, they take up all of the dead leaves from the lawns, in the fall, and that's where the grubs, live that the birds eat. So if they take up all of that, then they don't have those grubs and so on, and the insects and whatever.
Right. I know you're really in touch with the organic life forms in Central Park. I'm
an interspecies minister.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've never really talked about this before because there was no need to. I'm doing it now because of this rule that they want to pass.
They're going overboard.
But for years, I've gone to the park. I go to certain places in the park where I have a congregation of birds and squirrels.
Well, I know. You're absolutely true.
And I know these birds and squirrels, and I've known them for years.
You know them personally.
I know them personally.
And they know you personally.
And they know me personally.
I'm here to certify. I've been there with her. I can see those birds know who the hell you are.
Exactly.
Yes, and they right. That's really something.
And aside from the fact that whether they have or they don't have enough food, they have a right to interact with us if they want to.
They're sure part of nature's pattern, aren't they?
I mean, just like we have, it's like, so, it's, when I go out there, it's a communion of pure love, which is what true prayer is.
Now, what kind of life forms are there in the park? There's a lot. There's worms and bugs and
a lot of things,
and birds and That's part of the glory of Central Park.
Exactly. And when
my way of thinking.
And when Central Park was created, parts of it were created that were meant to recall being in pristine nature, whatever pristine nature is in the Appalachia. But in those parts of the park, like the North Woods and the Ramble, they're putting all of these new pathways for tourists, and they're putting up fences all over the place. And what's happening is that, we're being overrun, one, by tourists, and two, we taxpayers for many years have been paying for these parks for our enjoyment. We never planned to spend our tax money for the enjoyment of bringing in hordes of tourists. It's supposed to be for our enjoyment.
For New Yorkers.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with some tourists coming in.
And some of the other denizens of New York City are birds and
for
squirrels.
their enjoyment too. Because we've taken.
And you have a personal relationship.
I have a personal relationship.
I'm here to testify. She has a personal relationship with these animals, these so-called wild animals, and
maybe you could put up
she has a friendship.
A picture of the dove, of the mourning dove on my hand, and of the titmouse. It's like. What's interesting about birds have traditionally been messengers from God, from the underworld, from the other world, from the spiritual world, with indigenous societies in Christianity and Judaism and Islam and Hinduism and all of these different religions.
The dove,
And here, this is a mourning dove. That's Morning Star. That's her name.
Oh, look at her!
Look at her.
Isn't she beautiful?
And you could tell.
You think she knows she's beautiful?
She knows she's beautiful.
Yeah.
And she's there,
she
and
looks like a fashion model.
I know she's gorgeous.
Yeah, a movie star.
People
like
think
a movie star.
People think that the birds
She's
only
got such carriage. It's a regal bearing.
People think, and these are pictures taken by passersby.
Yeah,
they take these pictures and then they email them to me.
But you are friends with these birds.
Oh yeah, this is one of my friends.
This is not something. Yeah, this is. Yeah, you got to understand that, folks. She's got.
And she's not eating. She's not there to eat.
No,
she's there to
say hello to you. Yeah.
She's there to say hello to me.
Is that the one who greets you every day when you come out of your house?
No, this is a mourning dove.
This is a mourning dove.
The one that greets me is a pigeon.
You have a pigeon that greets you every day.
I have a pigeon.
A pigeon waits for
in front of my house. But this is in Central Park.
It's like out of Walt Disney or something. It's really beautiful.
We have this idea that we humans are superior to nature.
Yeah.
But what is fantastic for many of us who go out there to spend time with the birds is that, unlike with pets, we're there on their terms.
There's some people who don't like that.
And they don't like that. They decide to come to us or not to come to us. Now, Morning
Star. Some people think persons are better than birds.
Most people do. Our whole culture is based on that.
Well, that ought to be questioned.
Well,
because we're all part of one big system, right?
We're just part of the whole. We're latecomers. And the thing is that the book that I promoted on one of your other shows was The Myth of Human Supremacy by Derek Jensen.
Yes, you have.
Derek Jensen is a philosopher, and I think he's one of the most important people right now in the world, one of the most important thinkers. And I subscribe to 99% of what he says.
What part don't you?
Well, basically, he says what he says is that if we want to continue for the planet to continue to survive,
we're at a very point.
We cannot want this culture to survive because it's this culture itself that's destroying the planet. It's the overpopulation. It's the technology.
We've looked for the enemy, and the enemy is us.
The enemy is us, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, all of these buildings and everything. It's a whole idea of cities. If you have a city. It's not just the city, but the city depends on bringing food from other places, mining in order to make the machines, fuel in order to get them to run in today's world. I mean, and we have this, what we call cloud technology. Cloud technology.
Well, that's computers and things.
Yeah. Well, the cloud technology relies on physical backups that are destroying much of the environment too. So it's not just a virtual reality. You have to have, and then, like Derek Jensen points out, it's like solar energy and wind energy. Well, the solar energy is relying on mining these precious metals from around the world.
Say it again, I'm sorry, what?
The solar, to build the solar energy.
So you mean to capture solar energy?
Yeah, well, you have to build
electricity
the
or
panels, and the panels are made up of these sophisticated rare metals and so on. So we have to mine these around the world and destroy more of the environment. We have to mine the metal and so on that goes on it.
Just think of all the metal we had to get to make all the cars that are going everywhere.
Exactly, the cars, you know.
And putting out exhaust and everything.
Exactly, and I read that we only sold 8.5 million of them last year in the United States.
That's bad? That's a lot.
I know, yeah, but that's what the article said, only.
Yeah, only, yeah.
I mean, they're trying to figure out how to sell more.
Well, they're looking for the Dow Jones. They're looking at economic parameters. Exactly. Everything's economic. It seems
everything is economic.
In the modern world, there's nothing else but money.
So there's not going to be anything spiritual left if we continue to destroy the environment.
You are a spiritual person.
Exactly,
and you're in touch with the. Yeah, I know.
This rule, this rule that they're going to put up is an infringement of my religious liberty.
Okay.
Because this is my religion. My religion is reconnecting. My religion is reconnecting with wild animals, and in my case, it's with birds. You know, those are the wild animals that I reconnect with mostly.
Yeah, you do. Okay. She really does. I've been with her. I can testify.
So I'm a follower. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm an ordained interfaith, interspiritual minister. And my two main practices are my practices are St. Francis of Assisi, who preached to the birds and believed that the birds were our brothers and our sisters and the sun and the moon and so on.
Yeah.
And the Red Road, which is the Native American traditions.
What's Red Road?
The Red Road.
What's a road?
Road, R-O-A-D.
Road, like a highway.
The Red Road is what is generally called the spirituality of the Native American Indians. The religion.
Oh, I don't know from that. I don't know that.
Okay, so that's my other practice, and the Native Americans looked to the birds and to all of the other wild animals as messengers and as teachers.
Well, they were in nature much closer.
They never thought of them as being separate or being lesser than us or anything. So what happens is that in our culture we talk about being stewards, but when you're a steward of something, it means that you're
protector.
Not just a protector. It means that you have the authority over to decide. And we women did not like it when men were our stewards. You know, when they had the legal right to decide what was good for us. Now we're stewards of children because they're not able to make decisions on their own.
I like children. I really like
but the whole point
5-year-olds.
We're stewards of them.
Yeah.
But we should not consider ourselves stewards of nature because nature is comprised of adults with their own rules, and they've been here longer. They have more wisdom than we have. They don't need all of these contraptions that we have. They don't need to have buildings. They don't need to have, air conditioning and heating and cell phones and internet and it's like they have marvelous lives. And when you spend time with time with them, you realize that they have marvelous. It's like I also see, because I work with rehabbers.
What's a rehab?
They're people who rehabilitate, who treat injured wildlife. So in New York, it's squirrels and birds and things like that.
Okay, yeah.
And I see so many that come in and they're starving to death. They have neurological problems, which are probably many. We can trace it to the lead that's in the water here, and it's also from the pesticides and the herbicides that we put down in the parks, from the plastics and so on, and it's like. It's like when you put down, for instance, plastic grass. We're humans. We're walking on it above the grass, but the animals.
That's called astroturf.
It's called astroturf. The animals are actually, like birds, are actually down on it. It gets onto their feathers, the toxins that come out of the plastic, and with the heat and the cold and everything, and then they preen themselves, so they end up eating that stuff.
That astroturf's all over the place.
It's all over the place, and it's terrible because children are down playing in it. You and I aren't. But it gets into the skin. So they're putting it down in Washington Square Park. They're putting. I remember seeing even a few years ago. It was all over parks in Chinatown, including Confucius Park, plastic park, and I could see pigeons pecking at this plastic grass. That's terrible. But yet the Parks Department says that we're feeding them the wrong kinds of food, but they're feeding them herbicides and all kinds of poisons and Roundup the new name for Roundup that they use in Central Park
Roundup
is Accord.
what is it?
Accord. It's that Monsanto herbicide, which is also in the patent. It's also an antibiotic. It kills, microbes and so on, including the good microbes. Mm-hmm. And it's based on glyphosate as the main ingredient of it. And people have been winning multi-million-dollar suits against Monsanto since last August because they've been dying of cancer because of this glyphosate. In Central Park, they put it down, but under the new name called Accord.
Accord.
Accord means that you're in accord.
You're in accord. Everything's fine. Yeah.
It's like it's like they used to put up signs. They don't put up signs anymore.
Well, a lot of human attention and backing and so forth has to do with selling something.
But I found this. This is a record that somebody dropped, which says that they're putting down Accord and. On southeast something hill landscape, herbicide
Roundup,
Accord,
right,
this is Roundup because it has is glyphosate, but they don't say that anymore. You see, they used to put it on the signs, but now they're trying to hide it. So
well, okay, one of the
so anyway, so they want to prohibit feeding birds and squirrels.
Okay.
And can you put up Josie? And there's another one of me feeding a titmouse. In the winter, the titmice come, and they're resident birds. And these birds have been friendly with humans forever. They've never been domestic birds, but they're very friendly. And and when I'm out there and I see children hold out their hands, and the titmouse comes and lights on the hand, you see the expression of wonder on their faces.
Yeah.
And this is the only way for many urban children to ever get in touch with any nature at all. It's right next to the mourning dove.
Right next to the mourning dove, it says. Yeah.
And it's a hand. It's a picture of a hand with a titmouse on it.
Yeah, she's got it on the screen, but it doesn't seem to.
No, that's the mourning dove. No, that's Noah and.
Well, they're trying to bring it
it's
up.
It's above it, on top of those, up at the top. Next to the one of the mourning dove.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one. This is a titmouse in the winter, and they're very friendly. They're little, this doesn't look blue.
Is that your hand?
Yeah, those are little blue birds. Mm-hmm. And they're just wonderful. And then the chickadees come too. And they love people. They don't just come to me, they come to a lot of people. And
yeah.
And it's like, what's wrong with that? And it brings a communication, a reconnection to nature. And a lot of children enjoy this. And older people who can't afford to go to Broadway shows or anything, they go out to the park. And people who are dying of cancer and so on.
People have been feeding the birds forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been something that we do.
And they don't think you should do that anymore?
No, they don't think we should do that anymore. They say it's bad for the birds.
Why?
Well, they say one thing is that they become tame and then they start bothering people, which is not true.
Birds don't bother me. I love birds. We got birds and they fly around and I have to say hi. I talk to them all the time. I don't know if they hear me or not.
Well, after they prohibit,
I commune
with
birds.
Well, this is a little altar that I put here. This is birdseed. This is birdseed, and these are peanuts.
Yeah.
And the peanuts, the blue jays just love the peanuts.
Do they?
Yeah, they love peanuts like squirrels, and the cardinals too. They'll take the whole peanut and they'll take the husk off and eat the peanut and so on.
Now, what's going on? You said there's a whole bunch of people who are super urbanites. So
I want to just say before I get to that, I want to say one other thing, that as far as the freedom of expression, the American Indians were not allowed to practice any of their ceremonies or any of their practices until 1978. Most people are not aware of this.
Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
What was the rationale? Because they were savages or something?
Well, yeah, it's like it went back to the, to the 30s and before that to the 19th century, and because we wanted to tame them,
Well, yeah.
We wanted to force them to adopt, European ways of life.
Civilization.
Exactly.
Civilization means city dwelling.
We wanted to destroy.
City dwelling is
we wanted to destroy their culture. And so in 1978, it became possible for them once more to have pipe ceremonies. ceremonies where they traditionally make offerings to nature all the time, to birds and to all kinds of things, you know. And the eagle is sort of the supreme.
Whatever happened to Mr. Thoreau? He was very, very popular among the youth and everybody in general.
Well, they don't even know who he is anymore.
No, is that true? They don't.
That's true.
They don't teach him in school
anymore. So anyway, with the
what
native,
did you learn in school today? How can you?
They learn how to use a cell phone and look things up on the internet.
Yeah.
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I like Wikipedia.
The American Indians, you know, once again, it's like when they prohibited smoking in the parks, they can no longer hold their pipe ceremonies in the park, and now they're prohibiting feeding the birds and the squirrels, which is also a practice, and so it's like they're eroding all of our religious freedoms. And I co-teach with an American Indian chief. I co-teach Native American bodywork, a form of Native American bodywork, which is cranial sacral.
I know you've been doing this a long time.
This is my practice.
I
you
know.
It's like,
I've been impressed. I've known you about 1,000 years, and every time I can't believe that pigeon is waiting for you when you come out of the house.
So the Parks Department
comes on your shoulders like something out of a movie.
With this rule, it's going to be up to $200 fine. But somebody told me it's really going to be up to $1,000 because everything that has to do with the parks is up to $1,000 fine and a night in jail. So what this means is that I'm maybe going to go to jail for feeding a bird.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, is this shocking?
Yeah. Where does this all? Let's get down to it. How does this come to be? We've had a long history of our presence on the planet.
I want to say, you know, it's like maybe you could put up the picture of St. Francis and the one of Noah with the pigeon, because you did put up St. Francis. Put up Noah and the pigeon. Now pigeons, people think of pigeons as being pests. But in fact,
I don't think of them, but
a lot of people do. In fact, pigeons, you know, it was a pigeon that brought the olive branch.
They fly and they go right.
That brought the olive branch back to Noah, when the great flood happened. And why was it a pigeon?
Flood back, in ancient times.
In ancient times, when Noah was out there on his ark, and he sent the pigeon out. Okay, so this is St. Francis, you know, preaching to the birds and praying with them and so on.
That's right.
And then there's Noah, and Noah, you know, it's like they talk about a dove, but pigeons technically are doves. They're doves. They're
dove of peace.
They're columba.
Yeah.
You know.
Columba. What's that mean?
Columba means dove in Latin.
Does it really?
So that's the name of their species or something. So they're part of the same species as mourning doves and turtle doves and so on. At the time of Noah, you know, they knew pigeons have a homing ability. They can come back to home.
They have home pigeons.
So why did Noah send out a pigeon dove? Because they come back home. So, you know, when we talk about a dove, it wasn't some white dove, you know, it was a pigeon that he sent out that came back with the olive branch, okay? And then, you know,
those are all symbols of peace.
These are all symbols of peace.
Yeah.
And, you know, pigeons have saved so many lives in wars because they have, you know, they've brought back. I mean, in World War II, World War I, and all the way back, they brought back messages.
They used to give tips on the stock market, too.
They did?
Yeah, they did, I
didn't know about that.
Yeah, the one who,
Up at Harvard, they detect cancer. They found that they detect cancer in X-rays and so on better than humans. I mean, for many years, their fertilizer, their excrement was considered the best fertilizer in Europe. But now we use synthetic fertilizers, which are destroying the ground. And
so what is this telling us, and where is this impetus to stamp out nature, our touch to nature?
The impetus.
Where is the impetus coming from? What consciousness?
It's coming from, and
marketing, money.
And I tell you who told me first.
Yeah.
And somebody who knows the lay of the land in New York politics, and he's a friend of yours, Shannon Taylor.
Oh wow! Yeah, really? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
and he said it's the realtors that are behind this.
The realtors.
Okay,
there
Real
you go.
estate developers.
Okay. Yeah, but there's a lot of that going on in New York.
The
that
real
seems
estate
to be the
developers,
only game in New York.
As long as there is wildlife in any park, by law it cannot be developed. Okay, so they really want to get rid of the birds and everything by not feeding them.
So they can build another.
So they can
But another brick wall.
Yes, so they can start constructing. And I tell you, in the New York Times,
there's a money interest. Is that right?
It's a money interest.
They're influenced by trying to get more money.
It's valuable real estate, and they want to build things that they can make money with.
Well, there you're getting at the thing.
Okay, last Friday.
That seems to be the only thing that really motivates the modern world is money.
Last Friday, the lead editorial in the New York Times, Hudson River Park needs help. Hudson River Park is a park down in the south of Manhattan, and it talks about how they want to, there's a pier on the park, and there's a little building on it, but they want to put up an 8-story building, office building on it, and they, in order to do that, they need to have a law change, and Assemblywoman Deborah Glick, who represents the area, has proposed allowing a somewhat smaller plan, only 700 square feet of development, instead of 880,000 feet.
Well,
so you see,
that's about the same.
Exactly. So she's going to support it, and the New York Times is advocating for this, and they're saying, and they say in here, the opposition claims, well, all of the people that are going to be coming in will destroy the.
Oh, these little bits of nature around are just in the way of building.
They're in the way of building.
Of the building industry.
They're in the way of building.
The building industry is New York City.
So they're showing their hand.
That's the major force.
They're showing their hand with these New York Times. Now, if you look on the internet for proposals for buildings in Central Park, I was shocked because most people would never think of doing that. But
doing
Josie,
what again? Say it again.
Looking for proposals for developing the parks, and if
developing the
parks, and you'll find, for instance, there's a tower that's been proposed, which is a 700.
Don't we have something we're going to show that? Or something?
Okay. No, this is something that already exists.
What is it?
What they've done at Woolman. This is the skating rink in Central Park. And they've turned it into, for the summer, but you see they're doing it slowly. For the summer, they've turned it into something they call Victorian Gardens, and it costs about $8 to get in there, and then $4 a ride or something.
That's inside Central Park?
That's inside Central Park.
You can't go there, you have to pay $8 to get that part of Central Park.
There's a roller coaster in there and a Ferris wheel. And you know,
that's like an amusement park.
It's an amusement park, and that's what they want to do all over the park for tourists, so they can make money. Because parks now are private-public ownership. It's sort of like the privates develop them, and then it's like we pay the tax money to support them and everything, and then these private companies come in and they make money on it, and they bring in the tourists. And this is another project. That they're proposing, which is, you see, there's a glass building all around four sides of Central Park. That's Central Park.
This is a proposal. This
is a proposal.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is Central Park?
That's Central Park. They're proposing to dig everything, all of the dirt up and leave only the bedrock, and to build around it a glass building on all four sides, which they say will house 8 times the number of people that are in the Empire State Building. That's supposed to be a good thing. And it would be down to the bedrock. That's what would be left. Now, they can't do this as long as there's wildlife in the parks. They have to get rid of the birds and the squirrels and the raccoons and whatever.
To build up more.
But this is a proposal. Now, this proposal is obviously not going to go through. But when people spend money on proposals like this, it's because they know that in the future they can get something smaller. Like this Assemblywoman Glickman, she says she favors a little smaller building down in the park in southern Manhattan, 700,000 feet instead of 880,000. I mean, come on. So what people do is they propose something very big and then they settle for something less. And now this is the tower. They propose to put this tower.
There you go. You got a tower
in Central Park in the reservoir.
Let's get it straight. This is a mock-up, right?
It's a mock-up.
Yeah.
And that's the reservoir.
Where would this be? Something we recognize?
That's the reservoir. You can see they have little sailboats in it. You can see the tops of the sailboats and people swimming in it. That's what it says.
And they want to put a great tower like that over there? Why?
With an elevator. It's an observation tower for tourists.
For tourists.
It's 720, I think, feet high, so that tourists can go up and down in this glass elevator. And they've insulted the local Indians by saying that they've used a basket weave pattern on there that is a Lenape basket weave pattern. And I told a friend of mine who's a Lenape chief about it, and he was totally insulted by the fact that they were using basket weave of the Lenape to destroy nature in Central Park.
Do they have a copyright on that little weave? Or something, yeah.
So, you know, this would...
This is a much larger issue.
But there are geese and ducks in the reservoir. They have to get rid of them in order to do this. This is a reservoir. You know, so incrementally they're proposing a little bit here and a little bit here, and it's like it's the barbarians are at the gate. In this case, the barbarians are the realtors.
Well, now what about people who say, well, look, you got New York, and it's a city. It's not already. You've got upstate New York. You got forests all over the place. You got the Adirondacks. There's all kinds of nature all over the place. And if you have a city, you might as well make it a city. Well, and then if you want to go live in a country, go upstate and live there.
Well, what about if you just want to go for walks in the park on the weekend or after work? Or what about if you're poor and you don't have the money to go up there, or you're an older person who lives somewhere and goes and enjoys feeding the birds in the park?
No, I'm trying to think of a larger issue. What is this? I was a geographer, and they had a book, Man's Role in Changing the Face of the Earth. Well, you're talking about changing the face of the earth and man's ability to change the face of the earth, and you think it's running overtime.
Well, we used to think in terms of progress.
And progress. So on. It was called progress.
But you see, what happens, and I did too. I was part of the mainstream in that thinking.
Yeah.
But now I realize that progress is actually destroying the planet.
Well, that's a pretty strong. That's a pretty strong message to try and get out.
It's
okay,
different.
And I'm glad for you to bring it up. Yeah, go
ahead.
Yeah.
You know, now that we got the internet and so on, everything is a lot faster. Yeah. It's a lot there. People. I mean, when I was born, there were 2 billion people in the world. When my parents were born, there was 1 billion people in the world, and now we're going on 8 billion.
Yeah.
And so that's increased buildings, increased trash, increased mining, increased use of water, we need more energy, we need more, I mean, it's like, you know, we can't continue like this if we want the planet to survive.
Was it a mistake to make an automobile? Was it a mistake to make a train?
It's a very interesting thing about the automobiles.
Or whatever. All of progress,
in New York City, they used to have horses with carts, okay?
Right.
And at a certain point, yes, the dung became a real problem because it was hard, it had to be transported out and so on. And the solution was to replace them with automobiles.
Well, the automobile was invented,
Okay, but look at what the automobiles are doing to the world.
I'm not sure what
they're using. They use energy. The mining of the steel and everything that goes into them.
They make for transportation. It's a great benefit to have a car.
Well, it's not a benefit to the planet.
Well, I'm not so sure. Are people not a benefit to the planet?
No, they're not.
Maybe the planet would be better off if there were no people? Is that what we're saying?
It would be better off if there were far fewer people like there used to be. Because then when people did damage, they didn't do damage to the whole planet. The scale was much smaller.
How many of you out there in TV land are willing to abort yourself in order to make nature be able to take over where you were trying to make your imprint?
Well, I am.
And it's not the way people think, by and large. No. Oh, you are. But there's still people who's nature conservancy and that sort of thing.
Who funds those conservancies? The realtors.
Well, now you've got an example of New York City. Is this the case all over the world?
This is the only city. This is the first city to propose banning the feeding of squirrels and birds. But
is that the first time?
It's the first one. In other places like Boston, they have little dispensers, feed dispensers, and you can put a quarter in and get a little package of bird seed or
why can't you get your own bird seed?
Well, that's what. Well, no, but I mean, if you go there and you're a tourist, and it sustains itself because and all over Europe they have them. So that's what we should have. If the issue is that people are feeding them bread, which is not good for them, and it's also not good for people. I mean, bread is just not good for anybody because it doesn't have any nutritional value anymore the way bread used to. But anyway, so the solution.
Nutritional value?
No, white bread.
Wonder Bread is not good?
No, it's not good for you.
We were raised on Wonder Bread.
I know, but it's not good for you.
Okay,
okay, but they're saying that this is why they don't want people.
They know how to sell stuff.
They're saying
they know about selling.
The parks is saying that it's not good for birds, and that's why they don't want us feeding the birds because it's not good for them and it's not healthy.
Is it behind somebody wants to make money?
Yes, the realtors want to develop the park.
If somebody's wanting to make money, that's the American creed, isn't it?
Okay, so they're saying
that's all. This seems to be the only value that really trumps everything else.
So they're saying that they don't want people to feed them bread because it's bad for them. But I'll show you what. There's an article.
You really are building up a dossier here, you know.
There was an article in the Telegraph in London, and there are a whole bunch of other articles, but I only have this one. Birds are starving because people are told not to feed them bread, warns Queen's Swan Guard. The keeper of the swans for the Queen, who is a guy who has in England, who has all kinds of degrees and so on, has said, please start feeding them bread again because the swans are dying. They're starving. And he said they're going out onto the roads looking for bread. And he says that people have been feeding them bread for centuries. Please start doing it again. They're starving to death.
You think that's good advice?
Well, of course. I mean,
you should encourage the swans.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we want to have birds.
Yeah.
You know?
I like birds. I always do. I think they're wonderful. They fly. And I got birds around where I am.
So if you're a homeless person and they say, don't feed them.
They're really fun to watch.
If you say to don't feed the homeless people bad food because it's bad for them, well, if the alternative is they're going to starve, I mean, what's better, Wonder Bread or starvation?
Well, this is a big issue, isn't it? Now, but there's cities in the world, and then there's also vast open spaces all over the world.
Not so many. There are fewer and fewer of them.
Couldn't people just, if people really want to live with nature, they could go back to nature and live in the rural
Agriculture
area.
has taken over a lot of the world, and agriculture basically destroys an ecosystem because it puts in a monoculture of whatever it is, which maybe changes or something, as do the plantings, the reforestation.
All these things you're talking about are what is generally put in the columns as progress.
As progress.
You call it all progress.
But I mean, just think about agriculture. It destroys.
Is the human species a blight on the planet?
Yes.
That's what you're saying. Okay, that's interesting.
The human species.
So maybe we could get rid of the human species.
Well, we need to get rid of this. The volume, the large number of human species.
Get rid of the human species?
No, we need to go back.
Well, we've got some hydrogen bombs that could do that in really good order. Just do it and give it a century or two.
That's
it might
a possibility
be back to
now.
The cockroaches or whatever.
But the problem, and so therefore, and so that brings another thing. Pigeons and starlings and sparrows are considered to be an invasive species, and they're not protected by the government.
Pigeons and starlings. I think starlings are beautiful.
But they're an invasive species because they're not native to here. But we're not native here either. Europeans are not native to here either. Neither are the Asians who've come or anything.
I don't know who's native to what of anywhere.
Exactly.
I don't know who is.
Exactly.
It goes back thousands of years.
They've been here for hundreds of generations. We've only been here for what, 40 generations?
But isn't it good to have electricity?
Not if it's going to destroy.
Not if it's drinking water. If it's going to, I don't know.
The drinking water is being destroyed because of our progress.
Oh, okay, yeah.
What we call progress.
Well, how do we deal with it? I mean, how do we deal with this issue of man's role in changing the face of the earth and man's role in it and so forth? What is the proposal you're making?
Well, I'm doing the only thing I can, which is talking about it.
Yeah, right. Okay, fair enough.
I don't believe that I'm going to have an effect that's going to turn anything around.
Well, you're running up against. If you're running up against something where somebody's got a chance to make money, you probably don't have much chance.
It's my little grain of sand.
That seems the only thing that motivates society.
It's my little grain of sand that I'm putting in there. It's my little, seed. Because this is what I believe in. Seeds are life.
Yeah.
So when I give seeds to birds, I'm giving them life.
Yeah.
I'm offering them life, and they're offering me love and life and everything too.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I can do.
Is this going on all over the world? Is it Japan, all over, all the civilized or the advanced world?
The ban on feeding birds and squirrels is only in New York City, but you better believe that if it starts here, it's going to be first the parks, then it's going to be all throughout the city, which people have tried to pass laws in the past.
New York City you're talking about.
Yes, New York City.
New York City is sort of an unusual
thing. It's going to spread to the rest of the world because New York City is still, even though it's declined a lot, it's still a leader in the world.
It's a leader in the world because they got a lot of clever marketers
we still have
build
Wall
the Dow
Street.
Jones going up.
We still have Wall Street here.
Yeah, and they're all, that's called progress.
Yeah.
In their sense, it's getting better and better. Every day in every way, it's getting better and better, they say.
So, you know.
But you're saying every day and every way it's getting worser and worser.
It's getting worse for the planet.
Worser.
It's getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
And
so
as Derek Jensen says,
probably a lot of people don't want to hear that. They want to hear this is progress.
Well,
they really think that. They really think that.
I used to think so too.
Yeah.
But you know,
you
I
did
like
think that way.
What Derek Jensen
really
says. He says, you know, it's like when you talk to people, you know, who don't want the planet to be destroyed, if they have to choose between that or continuing the way of life that we have, which makes it possible to have ice cream 24 hours a day, to have air conditioning.
I like ice cream.
Okay.
Don't you like
they
ice
prefer
cream?
they prefer to have this civilization that's destroying that by action. They're supporting the culture that's destroying the planet. But he says if you let the animals vote, you know, the hammerhead sharks and whatever else, and the bears and so on.
I don't want a hammerhead shark deciding if I'm swimming in the same location with that shark. I'd rather not have him the ability to eat me.
The oceans are dying.
For instance, I don't want to be the...
All of the fish in the ocean are dying.
Well...
And they say that in 30 years there may be no fish left. There may be no birds left.
Where's the authorities for all of these figures and so on?
Well, there are a lot of scientists saying this.
There are.
Yes.
Is there a big movement? It would be an environmental movement.
Well, you know, I tell you, even the Explorers Club, bless them, here in New York City, which used to be about trophy hunting and so on, is now supporting the whole thing of save the ocean. And they're promoting.
That's fair enough. Yeah, you got plastic floating out
if you
in the
go
ocean.
there, they don't serve you seafood
so
anymore.
So it's a larger issue than just New York City, really. Yeah, right? Is that
it's a very large issue. Yeah. But this is where this ban is being proposed on feeding birds and squirrels, which is a very big part of it. Because
is there a wide following for that in the political system?
Wide following for what?
What's Mr. de Blasio's view, our mayor?
Oh, he said he's going to pass it. That he's going to authorize
to do that,
it. Yes,
right?
he wants to do it.
And
who are the major funders of his presidential campaign?
A lot of the realtors.
The realtors.
Yeah, because realtors is a big business in New York. That's the only thing.
And they're the ones that fund the conservancies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so what's the story in Morning Glory? What do we do from here?
So the story
I think it's you're bringing attention to it. Is there a large number of people bringing this attention?
We have to get out there and protest this. You know, not just accept it, even if we're not very powerful.
Well, there was a term one time: "Stop the world, I want to get off." You're not. It's you're in a modern world. You're not going to do away with cars and things.
Well, I tell you something. I'm prepared. I talk to people and they say, "Okay,
well, go back to nature." I wouldn't want to go back to nature.
Well, you would if you did, but you just haven't been around it enough lately.
No, I have been. No.
You survived it?
Yeah, only just. I got stuck on Mount McKinley once. I'll tell you, I just did me, and I'll tell you, I walked up in gym shoes for 4 days up Mount McKinley above the trees and everything, saying Balderie, Balderai, hello, Mr. Antelope, hello, Mr. This. Above were there any trees or nothing, and then all of a sudden it all changed and came as a terrible storm. I thought I was going to perish. And I had to come down, and I didn't want to see anything after. I thought I was going to die. I hadn't seen anything to anybody. It was stupid. I was stupid and everything. But when I came down, all I wanted to see was cement. I wanted to get back to the city after Mother Nature threw that storm at me. It would not relent.
If you were hit by a bus, you wouldn't think that the cities are such a great place.
I think you're right. I wouldn't, anyway, it's a big issue. Have there been people talking along the lines that you're tending to talk?
I have to tell you, I'm prepared. Yeah. I've been thinking about it. I'm prepared to go to jail because there's going to be jail time.
For
fine
and
possible jail time for feeding a bird. So I'm prepared to go to jail over this issue.
Is that coming up in the city council and all that kind of stuff?
No, they bypassed the city council.
They bypassed it by how? Aren't there
They
rules?
proposed a rule. They had a public.
Who's looking out for the environmental interest that you're interested in?
Well, the problem is, you see that they put the ultimate authority here is the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And
I distrust that term.
Exactly.
That sounds like
mental health. Can you imagine? And so basically they look at animals as pests, because they have a department which is veterinarian and pest control. It's the same department. Wow. And in the proposal from the Parks Department, they put under the same rubric under
the new research.
The new rule that they propose is under G, abuse of park animals. And there's 1 and 2. One is that you're not allowed to trap them or harm them or anything, and 2 is you're not allowed to feed them. And so feeding animals is under the title of abuse of park animals.
No.
Okay.
Well, where do we go with this, honey? What do you do? I think is that you bring it up.
I think lots of. I think.
Are
I
there
think
a lot of people? Are you finding there's a lot of people who can agree with you and
a lot of people agree with me,
principle,
but
you know?
today people don't protest anymore. It's no longer the 60s. Everybody's into their cell phones and so on, and they just accept things. You know, it's like because then they can look at nature on their cell phones or something. So people think it's terrible, but don't want to protest. What we need is for hundreds and hundreds of people to go to jail. You know, and make an issue of this.
Well, they did it over Vietnam. They did it over 9/11. All kinds of people have been ready to throw
people
themselves
are not doing it
on
anymore.
the barricades in France in the 1889
but
or
it doesn't happen anymore because they've controlled people through all of this, and plus the surveillance that they have via Facebook and Google and the cell phones and so on. They know who everybody is, what everybody says. I mean,
they do, and they're getting more and more. They're able to do all of that.
Yeah.
You're not. You would seem to be pessimistic in terms of your aspects of the prospects for the human condition.
I am. I mean, I think the best thing that could happen is the only good thing that could happen is for this whole civilization to disappear, and it will. It will, either through a nuclear holocaust or because the planet is just going to get rid of us. It's going to collapse because it's not sustainable.
Well, that's a big argument that a lot of environmentalists are saying, aren't
well,
they?
no, but the environmentalists
are
are mostly talking about how can we make this culture sustainable by having solar energy and windmills and all that sort of thing. Yeah. They're not talking about the culture itself is not sustainable. It's not about how to make this lifestyle sustainable.
What is there about the culture that's not sustainable?
Well, that we're destroying with our technology and our lifestyle. We are destroying the planet.
You don't see that. You don't believe in the progress.
What we call progress.
Every ad says it's getting better and better. Everything's getting better.
But
the cars go better. The cars are safer, and all.
Yeah, but
the highways are more safe.
The highways are what's destroying the planet. The cars are what's destroying the planet. The air conditioning that we're sitting in here. The buildings that we live in.
What would you recommend the planet to be back to the 20th, 17th
I think if there were a lot fewer people.
Well, we may get that through some sort of an atomic exchange of weapons.
That's a real possibility right now.
In fact, they got a capability to unleash the weapons that could be. There's modeling could kill every single human being.
There are people.
Do you think that would be benefit if they just
not a nuclear holocaust,
a blight on the planet?
But
the evolutionary process is
there are powerful people in Washington, in the think tanks and in the administration who believe that that we could attack Russia with nuclear weapons, and that Russia would back down and surrender, which nobody who really knows anything about Russia believes.
Are you optimistic, pessimistic for the human prospect?
I'm pessimistic.
There you are. Yeah, right.
And I don't see the light.
Just drifting in that direction.
I don't see the light.
Everybody's just going along with it, right?
Everybody's going along with it.
Yeah. It's a pretty radical kind of way to see things. Yeah. Thoreau. I used to read Thoreau too. Didn't everybody ever?
Thoreau is wonderful.
Yeah.
And what he said was, the less government there is, the better we are. But of course, there were a lot fewer people at the time of Thoreau.
Yeah, that's right. There always has been. Yeah.
There were like a tenth of the number of people that we have now.
Right, and it's growing. Yeah.
You see, that's the main problem.
So what is we to do? You got some newspaper articles and you're saying some of the things. Are there people who are rising in indignation about what the trend is in that? Are there people demonstrating for this and everything?
Well,
I don't see placards.
We had Occupy Wall Street, and then that was the end of that.
Occupy Wall Street was about economics, yeah.
Well, but the whole thing is they shut it down because it was all prepared on internet and so on. You see, and like they did all of the revolutions in the Middle East and so on. Yeah. The April Spring.
So where do we stand then, in your view?
Well, I think
what should we do?
Join me in going to jail over feeding birds.
I don't want to go to jail.
Okay, that's the problem. It's just going to be one night.
Well, I don't want to go to jail.
Just one night.
But I like birds.
You can't spend one night in jail for birds.
Well, I don't know. I've spent time in jail for other instances, but it was for other issues, like things like that. But
so you don't think you could join me down at the tombs?
Well, there's an awful lot of people who think there's this kind of thing that has to be addressed. That in general, that the planet's on a headlong crash course. There's people think that. I guess.
Let's get back to it. Will you join me in jail?
I don't know.
Well, think about it.
Think about it. I don't want to go to jail.
Why not? If it would help the planet.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm a little bit. You overwhelm me with the prospect and everything.
Well, you just asked me what could be done. I'm telling you what you and I can personally do.
Well, I'm not sure I see it that way, because I'm.
And Maggie loves birds. I mean, maybe she would like to go to.
Well, I think
agree to go to jail.
Birds. We used to have birds around and everything. I don't quite know how we can integrate with the other creatures and everything like that.
Freedom of expression, freedom of religion. You don't want to support that?
Well, I like freedom. I like people to be free to.
Well, do you think it's freedom if you're not allowed to feed birds?
I don't know how to deal with you. You're overpowering me here a little bit like that. I don't know what to do. And is there?
Harold, I want you to come and spend a night in jail with me.
I've spent night in jail with all kinds of people.
It's just one night.
Yeah, I know. I've been in jail. I know about that, and it isn't pleasant.
And some of those, criminals are very interesting.
Well, no, I would like to have a little bit more information or something. Or where does one? No, let's say somebody listening to this program would like to. Is there somewhere someone could go to get? Are there sites? Are there places? Are there groups? Are there people getting together around these issues that you're taking with that are fellow compatriots of the way you think that you could call attention to, where people could go? Is there a journal that's covering this kind of thing?
The New York Times. The New York Times has not even had a.
Do you have a reading list?
The New York Times has not even had an op-ed piece on this. Well, on the fact that there's going to be a ban. What does that say to you? And then they have this editor. I mean, obviously, because they sell their little subscriptions to the realtors.
Well,
I mean, it's not the subscriptions, but I mean, the New York Times isn't. It does. I mean, it's no longer a free newspaper.
Well, you've got some articles here that appeared in some print vehicles.
Yeah, but one of them
we're talking about it on a television program, and is there anything you could suggest for these sites they have it that we've shown? Could be something people could go to. Is there a site? Is there a link, or is there something?
There's one site which is a petition. I think if you look up petition to ban the feeding of birds in New York City parks, you could look up that, and you can click on it and say that you protested. But I mean, there are over 7,000 protests on it. But I mean, it's not going to. I mean, it'll make you feel good that you actually clicked on it, that you protested, but it's not going to change anything.
Okay.
I mean, the only thing that's going to change something is some actual action. Or like if we could get hundreds of people out there to in rallies, that would change things. But I don't have the ability to organize that. I haven't found a single person who wanted to help organize something.
You don't think it's a presidential issue? Somebody could run for president on that.
Well, I think
you're actually saying the humanity is a blight on the planet, and
humanity as it expresses itself, as it's expressing itself, the majority of humanity is a blight on the planet.
There's a lot of
many of the indigenous peoples are not a blight on the planet.
There's a lot of
Western humanity is definitely a blight on the planet, and so is all of the Asian into
the developed world,
developed world. Yeah. Everybody who's into technology and so on, that's a blight on the planet. But if you look at the San Bushmen, for instance, in Africa, the San Bushmen, they're not a blight on the planet. The traditional American Indians are not a blight on the planet. The traditional Eskimos are not a blight on the planet. But the ones that want to be Western have become like us.
Well, it's a pretty dismal kind of picture you project there, dear. I don't know. what to say, or where can we direct the people who are watching this program to?
Well, you can go.
Is there a site? Is there a couple of sites you could recommend?
No, there's only this thing where you could go sign the petition.
Pardon?
With the one I just said, the petition to ban the petition against the ban.
Is there a movement against the ban? The people who are saying the things they want to do against what they're trying to do. Well, I tell you,
the problem is that the person who was sort of setting up the rally. We've had 2 rallies with about
you got a group of people.
It wasn't my group. No, I was excluded from the group. Okay, so it turns out that the person who was organizing the rallies and so on is either a plant or is working for the realtors or has been turned, because that person showed that he was really he was really leading this so that he could undermine any efforts to stop the ban.
Well, do you feel like an army of one?
I do.
Yeah, that's not a very happy feeling.
No,
no. Yeah.
It's not a very strong position.
Do you have any camaraderie anywhere? Is there someone over in the South Pole or somebody that you've got in touch with that agrees with what you're saying and is ready to join in or something?
Well, a lot of people agree with what I say, but they're not willing to join in.
They're not. But there are a number of people who agree.
A lot of people in New York
essentially what you're
believe that we should not ban.
Modern man is a blight on the planet.
Yeah.
That's more or less your position.
That's what I've
That asks for an awful lot of consideration on the part of a whole lot of people.
Well, I don't understand why there aren't thousands of people or millions of people up in arms over this in New York City.
A lot of the people who might have that opinion are there's still wild areas all over the world that people could go to individually if they wanted to be in touch with nature. There's lots of places.
Well, can you afford to take a trip to Yellowstone Park? I can't.
A trip to Yellowstone Park?
Or wherever, to be in nature?
Well, I did that. I went to Alaska and got
but I mean now.
Mount McKinley.
No, now. Can you would you be able to afford to go on a vacation to one of those places?
What places?
A national park or something?
Well, people can. An awful lot of people can easily.
Well, an awful lot of people can't.
Oh, well, it's a big issue.
I can't afford to go to any of those places.
Yeah. Well, what we need to do is make people have the ability to lead. We have to make people secure in their situation.
Well, but everything's falling apart. How secure can people be in a civilization, in a culture where everything is falling apart?
You have no faith in the political process at all.
No, it's all corrupt.
It's all corrupt, right? So, well, it's a little hard to know what's to be done, and are there no voices of reason that
there are some, but we don't know each other.
Yeah.
Or else we're far apart,
Yeah, that's a very isolated position.
It's very isolated. We're all very isolated.
Yeah. You were up in Greenland. You used to go to Greenland regularly or
in
something.
Greenland now it's raining in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we don't pay attention. I mean, it's like the water is going to rise. That's one thing that's going to happen, and we're going to have another Noah's flood.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
You're talking about global warming and everything.
Yeah, we're going to have a flood, and it's going to knock out most of everything.
It's a terrible.
There'll be a few people left on the tops of mountains.
Is there any book? Anybody major things?
The Myth of Human Supremacy by Derek Jensen.
Okay, there. Now, just say the Myth of Human Supremacy
by Derek Jensen.
Jensen, Jen.
S-E-N.
S-E-N.
And you may want to join his movement, which is a deep green resistance.
What's it called?
Deep green resistance.
Deep green. Okay.
Deep green resistance, and you can find it on the internet.
Is that a site?
You can find it on the internet.
Deep green resistance. That seems to be the place where these people
That's what you want to. That's what you want to join.
Well, it might be that you've got something going. From little seeds do mighty oaks grow. It may be that you're onto something.
Sometimes
really
it happens.
Because there's a lot of general discontent, but we've got to say goodbye because we've run out of time on this planet and on this program. Nita, thank you for all your work.
I'll see you when we go to jail together.
They'll all go to jail in the morning. Okay, listen, it's really something. I understand the angst and so forth. Thanks for viewing. Nita is one of the best, I'll tell you that. And